everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Tonight we are going to be talking about a video game that I recently became really obsessed with, called Legends of Runeterra. It is honestly one of my favorite games right now. Not that I have too many at the moment, but I decided that it would be really fun to just info dump about it, and I honestly, I assume that it's not going to be picked up on the mic, but there is some rain going on right now, so if you happen to hear anything outside, that's most likely what it is. But once again, I kind of doubt that it'll pick up because it's not like thunderstorming or anything. But that's besides the topic. I'm literally just gonna go down like all the mechanics and keywords of this game, and then I will touch on some of my favorite characters in the game, and I will talk about how it's played and whatnot. So maybe if you've never, touched Legends of Runeterra before, you can maybe learn about the game and see if it's something that you'd like to play. So let's go ahead and get started. I am going to be using some triggers while I talk, and this first one is a little bit odd. It is a piece of, what is it called? What is this called? It starts with a B. Bark. My bad. Yeah, I have a piece of bark that I got ages ago, and I'm honestly not too sure how tingly it'll be. But anyways, let's get started. I'm just gonna start off with how the game works at its base. It is a card game. It is a TCG. Which, can I just say, it's very odd that it's considered a TCG, because it's not really a tradable card game. You can't trade cards in the game. So that's a little confusing. Anyways, that doesn't matter. So basically, you have, you build a deck with certain cards, and these cards cost mana. That is their currency, basically. And each round that passes, you get 1 mana in your pool. And you can have up to 10 max with 3 spell mana, which is mana that can only be cast can only be used to cast spells, sorry. And the way that you beat your opponent is you summon these cards. There's units and spells. You summon units onto the board, basically, with mana. And depending who has the attack token, which it trades every other round. So every other round you'll have the attack token, basically. It trades back and forth. So when you have the attack token, you can attack with whichever units you want. And these units have, they have stats called power in their health, basically. So if a unit had the stats of 5/6, they would have 5 attack power and 6 health. And this game isn't like Magic the Gathering, where your unit's health regenerates each round. The health just stays put with however much damage that the unit took during combat. But during combat, your opponent can block you when you attack. And they can block you no matter what, no matter how small big. You can get past these blockers, and I will go over that later when I touch on keywords. But at its base, you can get blocked by anything. Your units can be blocked by anything. And opponents, you and your opponent can also cast spells during combat as well, depending on the speed of the spell. There are slow spells, which can't be cast during combat, as well as focus spells. And there are fast and burst spells, which can be cast during combat. And I'm going to go ahead and switch triggers. I have a tarot deck box. And the deck that you make is very centered around champions, which are like the main, like they almost work like your win condition, basically. And these champions have level up conditions. So what you're doing through the game is you're basically doing little side quests in order to level up your champion with the other cards that you have. So it's always good to have cards that synergize with your champions. And you can have a max of 6 champions in a deck, which if you were to do that, you could only have 1 copy of each champion. You can have up to 3 copies of 1 card in your deck. Just a little fun fact there. Well, it's not really a fun fact, it's just, that's the rules. So, that is honestly one of like my favorite things when it comes to Legends of Runeterra, the champion system. The fact that you're basically doing little quests to level them up, to get closer to your win condition. It's really fun. And this is a fun fact. You can have a deck without champions. That is possible. It's not like against the rules or anything. It's just, it's not as recommended, because why wouldn't you have a champion, Why wouldn't you have that extra power? Anyways, I think I basically covered like the basics. So I'm gonna go on to the keywords, and I'm not gonna like go in super in depth with each keyword because there's a lot, and I don't want this video to go on for hours. So let's start. These are in alphabetical order. I have them like on my monitor in front of me. I have them all listed out, so I'm going to be going in alphabetical order. There is the keyword attune, which basically means when a unit with attune is summoned, they refill 1 spell mana for you. And then we have augment, which means whenever you play a created card with a unit on the board that has augment, they get +1 power. Then we have barrier, which means any damage that is dealt to them is going to be negated until the barrier comes off. And the barrier only lasts 1 round, no matter what, even if they didn't take damage. Then we have brash, which means that this unit can only be blocked by other units that have at least 3 health. Then we have something called challenger, which means when a unit with challenger attacks, they can grab any unit from the other player's board and force them to block that specific unit. Then we have something called deep, which means this unit gets like a stat bonus if you have less than 15 cards in their deck. Less than 15 cards in their deck. And then we have something called elusive, which is a very hated keyword among the community, which basically means like they're stealthed almost, where they can only be blocked by other units with elusive. So if another unit doesn't have elusive, they cannot block no matter what. The damage will be dealt once they strike, which is basically like attacking or blocking, basically. And then we have Fated, which means if they are targeted by an ally spell, they gain +1/+1, which means +1 power and +1 health. And then we have Fearsome, which means that a unit cannot be blocked unless by another unit that has at least 3 power. Then we have Fleeting, which means, which is a keyword on a card that is in your hand, and it means that it will get discarded at the end of the round if you do not play it. Then we have Formidable, which means a unit attacks with its health rather than its power. So if a unit has 0 power but 3 health, it'll deal 3 damage based on its health. So when a formidable unit is damaged, their power basically also goes down, like the amount of damage they're dealing is going down, rather. And then we have Frostbite, which if you frostbite an enemy unit, their power goes to 0. And it can go up in that same round. Oh yeah, and the frostbite goes away at the end of the round, I should mention that. But you can, like, your opponent could still add stats to them afterwards. It's just their, the power they had before goes to 0 for that round. Alright, I'm gonna switch triggers. I have a pretty thick book that I can tap on. It's called The Wise Man's Fear, and it's from one of my favorite series. Anyways, the next keyword that we have is called Fury, and it means if a unit with Fury kills another unit during combat or through spells, like basically if it strikes a unit, which you can do that out of combat with a spell. There's many different spells that causes units to strike other units out of combat. And when a unit with Fury kills another unit and they survive, they gain +1/+1. A lot of dragons have the keyword Fury. It's a very, dragon-specific keyword. There's a lot of dragon cards in the game. That's one of the subtypes. And then we have something called Hallowed, which if a unit is hallowed, they kind of haunt your board afterwards. Oh, you know what, I should clarify. I didn't mention this before, but each player starts with 20 health. And in order to beat your opponent, you have to get them down to 20 health, or you can use another condition based on certain unique cards in the game. But anyways, let's go back to talking about Hallowed. If a unit has Hallowed and they die, they haunt the board, and they give your leftmost attacker on the board +1 power for however many Hallowed units have died that game on your side. So if 3 Hallowed units have died, your leftmost attacker will get +3 health during combat and for the rest of the round. And then we have something called Immobile, where a unit can either be unable to block or unable to attack, usually both. If a unit is completely immobile, it's both, which is pretty self-explanatory. Then we have Impact, which this can stack up to multiple times. If a unit has Impact when they attack, even if they are blocked, they will do 1 damage to the enemy. Now if a unit has, let's say, 2 Impact, they will go ahead and do 2 damage no matter what, even if they're blocked. basically just do 2 extra damage after they strike. Then we have lifesteal, which if you've played like any other game, you should know what lifesteal is. Basically, however much damage is dealt by the unit with lifesteal gets turned into health. Not the unit's health, they don't get extra health, but you as a player get health back. And then there's something called lurk, which if a unit with lurk or a lurker is in the top card of your deck, like it's the next one you're gonna draw, then all units with lurk on the card get +1 attack, permanently, basically. They don't get extra health though, just attack. And then we have something called overwhelm, which is what I was referring to earlier. It's basically any excess damage after a unit with overwhelm strikes someone when they get blocked goes to the enemy. So if a unit with overwhelm had 8 attack and they were blocked by a unit with 4 health, they would do 4 damage to the enemy. And then we have quick attack, which basically means that if it is your attack token, your units will have quick attack, like their quick attack will be enabled basically, and they will strike first in combat. So usually in combat, when 2 units are up against each other, they will simultaneously do damage to one another. But if a unit has quick attack, if one of your units has quick attack, they will strike first and not take any damage first. But they will still take damage if they didn't end up killing the blocking unit, because the unit will still be able to strike back because it's not dead. And on the same topic, there's also double attack, where a unit, attacks twice basically, like they're able to strike twice. So they'll strike before the blocking unit and then again, even after that, when the blocking unit is striking. And then we have regeneration, which basically just means that a unit's health goes back to full at the end of the round. Then we have scout. We only have a few more keywords left. We have scout, which if you have the attack token and only scout units are attacking, you get to attack again after that, once it's your turn again. And then we have silence, which means that, if you silence an enemy unit, basically all their keywords, their positive keywords, will disappear, like either at the end of the round or permanently, depending on the card you use, whether it specifies this round or not. And it gets rid of their card text as well, so basically just any of their effects on the card go away. Then we have spell shield, which is it's kind of like barrier but for spells. It'll negate any spell, like any enemy spell or skill, which I'll explain what a skill is in a sec. Any enemy spell or skill, it'll negate it. But then once it's negated, the spell shield will basically pop and go away. And then we have stun, which basically removes a unit from combat. They cannot block or attack that round. It's not the same as immobile though, because it's just for that round. Though there are cards to extend it to the next round as well. And then we have tough, which means that is dealt, they will take 1 less damage than the damage they were dealt, if that made sense. So if you do only 1 damage to a unit with tough, they take no damage. If you do 2 damage to a unit with tough, they'll take 1 damage, and so on. And then finally, we have vulnerable, which is basically, it's kind of similar to Challenger, except any of your units are able to challenge an enemy unit with vulnerable. Like, you can just grab it and put it in front of any one of your units. Alright, and that is all the keywords. I can also go over some other, important words. I'm not gonna go over, every single thing, because there's quite a lot, but I'll go over the more important words. There are units that have attach effects, which basically means they can go onto other units and give them their stats and positive keywords. And then we have something called capture, which I'm going to go ahead and switch triggers real quick. I have this nice little Kiki's Delivery Service image that has plastic around it. So we can do some crinkling and tapping with this while I talk. So with capturing, if a unit captures another unit, they're basically inside that unit, they're removed from the board until that unit that has them inside is removed from the board. Hopefully that made sense. I feel like I worded that a little awkwardly. Then we have something called drain, which when a unit drains something, they're basically, I don't know how to explain this. It's not even that difficult to explain, my brain is short-circuiting. Let's say you were to drain 2 from the enemy. They would be dealt 2 damage and you would gain 2 life. That's basically what it is. And then we have something called manifesting, which basically just means that you are shown 3 cards of the specified, the card would say manifest a card from this region, for example. I don't even know if I'm not even sure if that is a card, but let's say it says that, so it'll show you 3 random cards from that region. You can pick one to put into your hand. Then we have something called invoke, which when you invoke, you are also shown 3 cards, but they are special cards. They're called celestial cards, and you can only get them through invoking. And they have pretty powerful effects. And the art on them is beautiful as well. You can just go ahead and search up celestial cards from Legends of Runeterra, and the art is stunning. I love the art on the celestial cards. There's also something called obliterating, which is basically, if you've played Magic the Gathering, it's exiling. You just get rid of it from the board. This brings up another topic. If a unit is obliterated, their last breath effect will not go off. Which last breath is basically something that, an effect that happens when a unit dies. And then there is something called recall, which is literally just something where you recall a unit to your hand. And you might want to do this for many different reasons. other side of that, we have something called Nightfall, which is when you play a card after your first. So your second, third, fourth, whatever, it'll come into effect. Then we have support effects, which basically, like a very simple one, is like if a unit says, give my supported ally quick attack and +1 power, the unit to the right during combat, when they're attacking, will get those effects. I think that's about as much as I want to cover here from what I'm seeing. Oh yes, one more thing. Besides units and spells, there's also things called landmarks, which are basically just like, I mean, they're landmarks, they're representing like places throughout Runeterra, which is what the world is called, which is what the world is called. And they have like aura effects on them. They can have aura effects on them where no matter what happens, like as long as they're on the board, the effect is in action. Or they can have a countdown effect where after a certain amount of rounds, the effect will come into play. And there's many other different types of landmarks. Okay. I'm gonna circle back around to my tarot box. And I'm just gonna mention all of the different regions in Legends of Runeterra, which is basically, you know what, how did I not mention this before? This game is based off of League of Legends. I don't know how I didn't mention that, which League of Legends is an extremely popular game. And this game isn't like super similar at all, because you know it's a completely different genre, but all the champions and some of the characters are referenced directly from League of Legends lore, and that's where these regions that I'm about to mention come from. Let me just pull up the regions real quick so I can, just in case, so I don't forget anything. There is Bandle City, Bilgewater, Demacia, Freljord, Ionia, Noxus, Piltover and Zon, Shadow Isles, Shurima, and Targon, which, if you had to ask me, Targon is my favorite region. It's just a very satisfying region to play, and in my opinion, it has the prettiest artwork. So, I think now I'm going to go over some of my favorite champions. Now, I just want to say, just because they're my favorite doesn't mean they're like incredible. A lot of the time I am pulled to a champion because of their aesthetic rather than the actual gameplay. Obviously I still focus on the gameplay, but I'm just a sucker for aesthetics. So let me just go down the line of my owned champions. And I think one of my favorites right off the bat is Zoe, which she is elusive, can only be blocked by other elusives, and she is a 1-cost 1/1, and her effect before she levels up is that she creates a super cool star chart, which is a card that invokes whenever she is able to directly hit the enemy. And her level up condition is that she's seen you play 10 cards with different names. And what it means by seen, like if a card sees you do something, it has to be like on the board basically, somewhere, to be able to see you do something. And her level up, she's still elusive, and now she's a 2/2 in terms of stats. And now you have a permanent effect because I play so many different champions. I guess I'll just go to the ones that really stand out to me. I love this champion called Nora. She is also elusive and also has an effect when she directly strikes the enemy. She plants a mysterious portal in the top 4 cards of your deck, which, when you get a mysterious portal, when you draw a card and you pull a mysterious portal, because it basically like attaches to your cards, you randomly summon a 2 or 3 cost unit besides champions. They're called followers. The units that aren't champions are called followers. And yeah, they just randomly get summoned onto your board for free, basically, as long as you pull a mysterious portal with your card. And her level up condition is that you've summoned 6 created allies, which created just means that it wasn't originally in your deck to begin with. I believe that's like the correct definition of what that would mean. And then her level up, she is I didn't go over her stats. She is a 1-2. And then she turns into a 2-3. And now, as long as she's on the board, your mysterious portals now summon 4, 5, 6, or 7 cost followers instead. And she has the same effect when hitting the enemy. Another one of my favorites is called Yumi, which is an attach champion, which means she can go onto another unit and grant her stats. And her effect is at the round start, she grants the unit that she's attached to +1/+1. And the level up condition is that either she or the unit she's attached to has attacked 3 times, because you can play attached units like on their own if you want to. And then the level up, oh yeah, she was a 2-2 before, and her level up is a 3-3. So instead, at the round start, she grants the unit she's attached to Spell Shield and 1-1. And I genuinely love playing Yumi. She's really fun. I love just getting big stats on my units and then suddenly having them have a spell shield, so the enemy can't even really do anything unless they get rid of it first. It's just really satisfying. Oh yeah, I love playing Pantheon. That's the next champion. He has Overwhelm, Barrier, and Faded. And he levels up once you've targeted allies in 5+ different rounds. And when he levels up, he gets, you grant him random keywords for each round you've targeted allies this game, which means you can have at least 5 extra random keywords on him. And I absolutely love that effect, especially when he gains elusive, because then if the enemy is unprepared, they can't do anything, and it's hilarious. Oh yeah, and I should mention, I'm not going to go over all of them because I haven't been going over them, but champions have champion spells that are like specific to the champion. You can put them into a deck without putting the champion in there, but basically what happens is, if you already have a champion on the board, then, and you draw the same champion and it's in your hand, it'll turn into their spell. So just for an example, I know I said I wasn't going to go over them, but just as an example, Pantheon's champion spell is that it will grant an ally +1/+1, and you can stun an enemy. there are many different champions that I love playing and would consider a favorite, but I'm not going to go over all of them. The next one I'm going to talk about is called Talia, and when you play her... Oh, you know what? I just realized I never explained what a skill is. I'm sorry. I said I was going to explain what a skill is, and then I didn't. A skill is basically, I mean, kind of self-explanatory. It's something that happens, like, when... You know what? I'm going to look up the definition just so I don't speak out of my ass here. Okay, this is, yeah, I'm looking at the official definition, and it's basically, they come into effect, in a way, like when you basically, gosh, I don't know how to explain this, it's right in front of me, but I can't explain it, sorry. Let me just directly read the definition, and if you understand it, then good for you. Skills are committed to enact a unit's card text in a way that can be reacted to. So, basically, it's kind of like it's its own card almost, the skill. If that makes sense. It's almost like you're playing an extra spell when, either when you play a unit or when you attack with a unit, a skill can happen, and it shows up on the board as if it's like a separate card. I think that's the best way to explain it. So anyways, back to Talia. When you play her, you can summon an exact copy of an allied landmark. And she's a 3/5, and she costs 5 mana. I realized I wasn't going over the cost for the other champions. Whoops. Whatever. I doubt you guys care that much, but and her level up condition is that you've summoned 5+ landmarks, and this is her level up. She is a 4/6, and I love this ability personally. She has the same play effect. You summon an exact copy of an allied landmark, and then this is a skill. When she attacks, she deals 2 damage to her blocker 3 times, so like 6 damage total. And if the blocker is dead or gone, then she deals 2 damage to the enemy directly instead. So if the blocker in front of her has 2 health, she'll deal 2 damage to it and it'll die. And then she'll do 2 damage 2 more times directly to your enemy, to your opponent. I'm gonna go over, gosh, I want to go over 3 more, but this video is getting pretty long. I suppose I can just go over Aurelian Soul. I'm actually going to go over only 1 more, but I will tell you who my other favorites are, but I'm just not going to go over them. So the next one is called Aurelian Soul. And he is a 10 cost card, which is the maximum unit mana, by the way, like I mentioned earlier. And he has Fury, because he's a dragon, and he has Spell Shield. And when you play him, you invoke a celestial card that costs 7 or more. And at the round start, you create a random celestial card in hand. So it's like a free invoke, you just don't get to choose which card it is. And at the round end, this is your level up condition, or his level up condition. At the round end, if your allies have 20 plus total power, then he levels up. And this level up is pretty neat. He turns into an 11/11, which he was a 10/10 before, which is 11 power and 11 health, which is pretty, awesome sauce. has the same play effect, and at the round start, you create a random celestial card in hand. But here's the catch: your celestial cards cost 0, so you could play like a 10 cost celestial card for nothing. Okay, so I am gonna go over which of the other ones are my favorite to play that I didn't talk about. I really enjoy playing Diana, Aphelios, Zed, Bard, Braum, Shyvana, Leona, Malphite, and Elder Dragon. Those are my favorites, and those are just champions. I have a lot of different favorite cards that I really enjoy playing, but I think that's about gonna wrap it up here. One other thing I guess I can quickly mention is that there is a single player mode in this game. It's kind of like a roguelite. It's either a roguelite or like, I always get them mixed up. But yeah, and I really like the single player mode. The only gripe I have with it is it can get kind of grindy when you're trying to level up your champions, but it's overall a very fun game mode, and you can either do that or PvP, which is player versus player, where you go against a real opponent. But that's about gonna, clear it up for today. And thank you for listening to me ramble about how this game works, because I don't really have any friends who play the game, and I feel a little lonely over here in my Runeterra corner. But I hope you get good rest, good sleep. I hope you have a good night, or rest of your day perhaps. And I hope you feel well rested when you wake up.